talk about change in weather. Oh my gosh, man, this was an interesting week, let's put it that way. I started the week off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on the water, and we had snow, we had rain, we had 25-degree weather in the morning. I've been living in my Blackfish soft shell. My airy gloves have been on pretty much, feels like 75% of the time. Even in the afternoon, I saw water temps as low as 42, 41 and a half again this week. It was the third week of April, and things should be getting warmer, right? We should be. So, but we didn't see that. We saw actually the trend of things getting colder. It's probably the first stretch of 3 days in my 20 years of guiding and doing this where I actually saw the water temps drop every single day in the third week of April. I even had days where water temps would drop from morning until afternoon when the sun came out. Just because the air temps were so cold, we had some days earlier in the week where I don't think it even got into the mid-30s. And you had some wind and you had snowflakes. It was interesting. So one thing I learned is you just got to go fishing. And we caught plenty of fish those 3 really cold days. We just couldn't get the big ones to bite. You could actually see, and we're talking crappies, you could actually see some of these big fish sitting in certain spots, not even moving. I mean, we get some of these fish to make movements about like this. And that's it. Not moving up and down, not moving side to side, just maybe nodding their head up a bit. And we threw all kinds of stuff at them. A lot of fish still biting because that water temp has been a lot warmer than the air temp, and you're still finding upper 40s back in some of these cuts and these back channels at bays, and that's producing a bite. So you kind of have to ask yourself, you got to maybe set realistic goals when you get these massive cold fronts and high pressure systems like we saw Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, Sunday was mid-60s, warm, beautiful. Anglers are out there in t-shirts. Monday morning, I'm like this. I'm wearing stocking caps. I'm wearing my gloves. We got frost across the entire deck of the boat. We got all that sort of stuff, and it puts some strain on the fish, and you bet they feel that, especially with these high pressure systems, and the pressures continue to rise for a couple days, and that puts a squeeze on these fish. In the springtime, more than any time of the year, in my opinion, temperature is so important. You're going to hear me say the word temperature a bunch throughout this recap. Water temp, of course. You want to find the warmest water you can. These fish make major changes to behavioral patterns dependent on temperature. And so you want to find that warm temperature. You want to find 50 to 53 degree water temp the third week of April. That should be about typical. I'll tell you what, in 3 days of fishing, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at least, we never found 50. To the contrary, we fished in a lot of 46 and 47 degree water temp, even way back into these cuts, where last week we saw 53, 54, 55 degree temperature back in these cuts. So it cooled off quite a bit, and rightly so. The fish felt it, we felt it. It took me a few days, even with gloves on, for my fingers to recirculate the way they should. Then things bounced back. It got warm on Thursday. Of course, that was the day of the week that I spent in the office. Go figure, right? So it pretty much doubled the high temperature on Thursday from Wednesday to Thursday. And then Friday kind of teetered around. We got some weirdness again. And then again over the weekend, cold. A little bit of snow on Saturday, rain, a little bit of flurries today on Sunday, and kind of grossness. Never really got out of the 40s again. So, you know what? Probably the best term for weather this week would probably be yo-yo. It just seemed to yo-yo back and forth. There was no consistency. But I'll tell you what, you look at the forecast this next week, we might be flirting with 70 degrees, possibly. I saw a bunch of days in the 60s this week of some rain. Which could help. I mean, you get warm days and rain. It necessarily doesn't cool off the water temp. So if you're going to see upper 60s and rain, that can help in some situations. So I'm looking for a big change this next week compared to last week on a comfort level for us, on a comfort level for the fish, on the comfort level for water temperatures. Everything should make a drastic improvement this next week with the weather we're about to see. Big shout out and congrats to the Memories Made Crappie tournament that happened on Lake Minnetonka yesterday. They had 40 boats show out and really put out a good showing. There was a live feed on the Memories Made Guide Service Facebook page. Go and check that out. It's fun to watch. They did a live weigh-in, and there was a lot of 5, 6, 7 pound bags for 10 crappies on Lake Minnetonka. So it showed out well, had a lot of nice fish, and of course Shane, Matt, and Griff cracked 10 pounds with like 10.8 something for 10 fish. That's over a 1 pound average on a metro lake. So Minnetonka's fishing well right now. A lot of great fish coming in, a lot of activity, good numbers. It's fun to fish. But that's not the only lake in the metro kicking out fish, and everyone wants to go to Minnetonka, and it's been absolutely hectic and busy when you get a decently warm day. I'd encourage you to check other lakes. I've fished many other lakes. I've fished the Sasago chain here this weekend. I've been on a variety of bodies of water the last couple weeks and have caught some quality fish. Minnetonka gets a lot of attention, and rightly so, but I'd encourage you to try something else. Waconia is starting to kick out some fish. Forest Lake, White Bear Lake, the Sasago chain, Clearwater and Annandale's kicking out a bunch of fish. Prior Lake's kicking out a bunch of fish. There's so many great crappie opportunities, and sunfish. The sunfish are biting good too, so don't negate the sunfish. But don't just feel like you have to hit some of these more popular lakes. Play around on some of the lakes close to your house. You'll be surprised what turns on right now. And actually, some of the warmer bodies of water I'm finding are not these bigger bodies of water. So the lakes like Minnetonka and Waconia and Prior Lake and Forest Lake, I'm finding warmer water in some of the smaller lakes, more protected, dingier water, different bottom substrate, that sort of stuff that brings in more heat. So you might find a better bite right now on some of these smaller lakes. And less boating pressure too, when you pull up to an axis on a Saturday and there's only one other boat there instead of one open spot. So keep that in mind. Maybe branch off the beaten path and try some of these other lakes that kick out panfish, and you'll be surprised on what you catch. Your average size might go up, and your comfort level in terms of water temperatures might go up. So give that a shot. How are we catching our fish? We're catching our fish a variety of different ways. We're catching them on of course, bobbers and hair jigs still. That we use small 64th ounce hair jigs to get them to bite earlier in the week. We were pitching stuff. We were pitching plastics and small jigs as well. Jack, my son, went out with Tom Dobbins on Friday in the rain. It got warm. It was in the mid-50s, and they pitched plastics. Tom makes his own plastics, and they were pitching that stuff, catching a pile of fish on a more aggressive approach, pitching it and letting that bait kind of pendulum down and working it back without a float, and they caught a pile of fish. So a bunch of ways you can catch fish right now. I'm seeing anglers use crappie minnows still. I have yet to put a crappie minnow on this year. Not that they don't work, I just don't feel like I need them, and especially with these cold conditions, and I might be wearing gloves because it's 26 degrees outside. I don't go to mess with the minnow bucket. So my crappie minnows have been left at the bait store for me. If that's your confidence, then I'd say use it. But I've been using hair jigs and plastics and that sort of stuff. So don't be afraid to get after it and do some pitching and casting and retrieving as well. But we've caught a pile of fish on the floats. Some cool patterns. Of course, we've been going back into these cuts and these back channels and stuff because that's where the warmest water, the temperature thing, right? The warmest water is. And we've been catching a bunch of fish back in those areas. However, we found kind of a cool pattern because it got so cold earlier in the week. The warmest water by far in the lake over deeper basins and off the weed lines and the edges is that top few feet. So guess where we're catching our fish? Our probably most fun pattern on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was over deep water. I'm talking 15 to 24 feet of water. A lot of times in 20, 21, 22, 3 feet down. So we were still using a fixed float, 3 feet down, casting over 20 feet of water, and that big school of crappies was right up against the surface. They slid out from the bank because it was warmer last week where they were sitting on that warm water. Some of that shallower water got cool or uniform, it got consistent, so the school slid straight out. Instead of being in 3-4 feet of water, they slid out 3-4 feet down over any break or hole. And we picked a pile of fish up doing that. Super fun to be casting out. So it was kind of funny. You had a lot of boats in certain spots fishing docks and banks, and they're struggling. They're not catching as many fish, and what's going on? And I look at them and say, turn around completely that direction and make the same cast with the same approach. Well, I'd be casting into 17 feet. Just do it. Cast out that way, boom, bobber goes down, they're catching fish. So a lot of these fish slid out. Still, we're feeding just in a different spot, kind of a unique pattern. And we kind of joked about it, about, hey, that 20-foot pattern, I'm not fishing down in 20 feet, I'm fishing way up near the surface in 20 feet, because that's where the warm water is. That's where the minnows are. And you can actually see some of these crappies waking as they chase these fish around out deeper. I expect that pattern to be done now. Just kind of a cool deal, something to put in that memory box next year. If you see some similar situations as we saw this week where things get cold, don't be afraid to try something different and cast out over deep water, suspended, because they're just chasing fish and they're finding that warm water. Remember, temperature. So kind of a cool pattern. Otherwise, I expect this next week things to light up again shallow. I expect us to see a really good bite here this next week and the next week, and I start to see things back on track, and we'll welcome May with a big smile. So get up there chasing fish, have some fun, and enjoy this last week of April, and get out and chase some panfish and crappies. Get off the beaten path, try something new, try something different. Otherwise, enjoy it. We're looking at May. Next report, we'll be talking May, and then we'll be getting ready for the Minnesota fishing opener in less than 3 weeks. So we'll be talking, spring patterns still for a while, but we'll be getting you ready and dialed for fishing opener, so you can get some, hopefully, walleyes in the boat and change things up a bit and target something other than bluegills and crappies here in Minnesota. Everyone's excited. We've talked about it for a while. We're jacked up, had an early spring, so it seems like we've been doing this forever. Bear with us 3 more weeks if you're into the larger game fish. And but hey, get out there and chase some panfish. It's a blast right now. Bring the kids, and you'll have a good time. So catch you next week.